Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe show's continued coverage of the CSM 16 with our interviews, this time with Kay-Lynn Tsero. Before we begin, how you doing, Kay-Lynn?
I'm not doing too bad. It's a little warm where I am, but other than that, it's not too terrible.
Alrighty, that's good. And so the rules are simple. I have 50 minutes to go through the candidate. Anything I feel like it is necessary to help explore who they would be as a CSM to allow my audience to make an informed decision. I have their CSM campaign post up in front of me, and we'll be showing it as throughout the video. And I also disclose any sort of pre-knowledge about a person, which I kind of talked to you about this a little bit ahead of time. But while I do remember that you were an active member of the, or at least you were a notable member during the Triglavian efforts, and therefore, I do know of you. I don't remember the details of who you are. So why don't we start with that? Who are you, and what did you do during the Triglavian invasions?
So I didn't during the Triglav invasions, I didn't do a ton outside of just going on fleets. I wanted to help, I wanted to help the Triglavians as much as possible. I encouraged my alliance at the time to do so at the same time. And a few of my alliance mates really went into it, which was nice. But for the most part, who I am, I've been playing Eve for so long, 2013 solidly. Um, and I've lived in every space. I've done high sec as an incursion, not just runner, but FC. I've done low sec with waffles. I've done null sec with null such with NSH. I've done um, wormhole space with eUni among as well as um, my own alliance, as well as multiple times with just circles of friends. I've lived in basically every facet of space in this time period, constantly maintaining a presence in wormhole space the entire time. Just about. There was a span of a couple of years I didn't, but for the most part, it's been pretty solid. Since 2014, I've been constantly in a presence in wormhole space. Um, and so when Triglavians came out, I was really excited. It was going to really shake things up, and I kind of jumped on. I was like super hyped with them unveiling that we can fight for them. So I encouraged my alliance, like I said, I encouraged my alliance mates to go fight for the Triglavians. One of my alliance mates, we constantly hazed because he decided that he wanted to fight for the Empire.
Mm.
Um, but for the most part, we mostly fought for Triglavians. And I also did the one of the biggest memes ever and got the body pillow that people saw, um, where I officially have a true Dakimakura of Zarya Triglav from the art I got commissioned from a very talented artist. It was actually a really reasonable price too. If anyone's looking for art, just reach out to me. I'm more than willing to put you like give you like get you in contact with him. He's a really good artist.
I,
Um,
I have to confess, I am still to this day absolutely shocked that one of these did not show up at my doorstep just unsolicited one day throughout the course of chapter 3. I was convinced it was only a matter of time. But so you so your commitment is strong, I would say, to Zoria. That
oh yeah, no, she is my Eve waifu. Uh, Look back war. It's not silk. It's actually the materials made is called two-way tricot. It's a super high-end fabric that you can only get from actual trusted Dakimakura stores. At least I haven't found anywhere that isn't one of them. It's also very expensive relatively. That cover alone cost, I believe, $80.
oof. All right, well, if anything, it is a testament to your dedication to Eve Online and your attention to detail. So, anywho, I'm not sure if that is the reason why. Well, I mean, maybe it will be the reason why people elect you. But let's kind of talk about you as a campaign, or in your campaign a little bit more. So you've done all these different parts and facets of Eve. Um, what was your favorite? What was the part where you felt like Eve was ticking the most, or the best for you? What did you resonate the
Um,
most with?
there's several points in my Eve history that kind of I hit that thing, but I've as a Kepler I have grown um several times. The first real time was when I was in Eve Uni, and I had joined the LoSec campus, and I started, and they lifted the rule of engagement to enable us to attack neutrals. I started there back before you could be a pirate, and then
Mm.
once my old main actually still has we call it the eye patch implant, because all of us on that inaugural fleet got it because we were pirates.
You're not talking
That was
about the
the first.
monocle, were you?
No, not the monocle.
I was about to say that is a pretty long history of spending money for to show off how much you like Eve. Then, but okay, good. Okay, moving on.
No, it's yeah, I can't remember what it's called. It's just like this like metal eye patch that goes over your eye.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called, but all of us on the fleet got it. Obviously on my new character I did not, because I have my Triglavian survival suit.
Hmm.
And I really like the way that looks.
Okay.
But the uh that was the first time. The second time was when I really started getting into waffles and helping them how I could, because I back when I was in Waffles, I was a recruiter, so I was pushing all sorts of different things. And even the second time when I joined Waffles, I helped Coyote Benihime set up the blackout wormhole that we did. And so that kind of sparked it, and then just basically the entire time.
All right. Now, backing up a little bit, the very top of your post says, "Hey all, once again into the breach I go with CSM candidacy. This time with a new name." So let's unpack that a little bit. What is your history with the CSM, and what's the deal with a new name?
This is my fourth time running for CSM.
Hmm.
Um, and so, but my previous attempts were under my old main, similarly pronounced Kay-Lynn Tsero, Kalen. The reason for the name
Ah,
change is because in the last 2 years, I have realized I'm trans and I've begun transitioning. But the issue is now people identifying with me as a guy kind of isn't the same capsuleer who I am now. So, and CCP adamantly refuses to let us even just do a gender change,
right.
because they cite, oh, your history, but you can always just rip out your SP and inject a new tune, and your entire history goes by anyways. I don't get how they keep falling back to that. But because of that, I created a new character, Kay-Lynn, and have been training her to be my new main.
Well, that's a very encouraging story. Um, I will echo, that I think that Eve Online, one of the things that's really special at Eve Online is that like we do have a second identity in this, universe that is parallel to our own, but set like 40,000 years in the future. And in this universe, we all get to be who we want to be in this universe. And so, I have this rule within the convocation that like, whatever pronouns somebody wants or whatever, I don't let that debate happen, because this is a game and people should be able to engage with it however they want. And so it's a moot point. And so I think that, and to that end, it's also true that among subset communities in Eve, there is a very large, vocal, active, and prominent trans community within Eve Online. And they often demand respect and deserve respect. And so it's awesome that you would be able to represent that as well. But that isn't what you're about either. So I am going to turn that back on you and say, like, in the event that somebody might be concerned that all of this is some ruse cruise to get a trans person on the CSM to push your agenda to get CCP to do the character gender swap or something like that. Like, if you want to speak to that and say that, like, um, speak to that fear at all.
So the thing is just like if that's why I've never mentioned in my CSM post that I'm trans. I
Awesome.
just stated new name. You can scan the whole thing. I never mention it once that I'm trans. I never bring it up because the people who are electing me need to elect me for my platform, need to elect me for who I am as a candidate, not for what I am. If they choose to elect me because now they know that I am trans and I'm fairly open about it, um, then that is their prerogative, but that's not why I want them to elect me. I want them to elect me because they feel that I would represent these sections of space best.
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate you pointing that out because I couldn't figure out what you meant in the text and I had thought that I'd missed it. And so uh, I'm glad I stumbled upon something that was just below the surface, but as opposed to just didn't do quite enough research. Um, Either way, uh, I yeah, and so I'm glad that I was able to say what I had to do about it, and we'll just leave that where it is and focus on what you do represent as a candidate, which is so. What have you been up to since Chapter 3 ended? I know that that's been incredibly controversial. A lot of people that were very pro this stuff has kind of soured to that. There's a lot of ideas about what needs to happen, and every step of the way with all the there's been a few different like stage changes over the last several months. Um, where do you think things have been since Chapter 3, and what kind of representation do you want to bring to the CSM because of this? Or how do you want to address it on as a CSM representative?
So are you talking specifically the Triglavian stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, like the invasion content at all, Edencom, Triglavian, Popin.
So this is a interesting question because um I at this point there were a few things that happened during chapter 3, well towards the end of chapter 3, that I never expected. Such as I didn't expect them, and this was definitely interesting, especially with regards to Niarja. I didn't expect them to let the system like actually close the systems off
Mm,
from all access. I had figured that they would give the Triglavians a chunk of space from all the empires that totaled up to the amount, not the exact systems that we had that had been won.
that's a good point.
Um,
That's a
so
good point.
like especially with how scattered they were, and it's they have an interesting workaround for that. But it was I had no idea that was going to happen. So when everything happened, and especially choke points like Nyarja get cut off permanently, uh, I really don't know what CCP should do for the next stage of it because they it depends on how they want to tackle it. Do they want to try to have the it seems they want to go try to have the empires try to reconnect the section of the space cut off. But I think with that, with what they said about what they're going to do about the Niarja specifically up, um, it's going to end up in another it's going to be another Tama when that gate is constructed. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, I think personally, probably one of the better
I
options.
think that Rancer is a bit of better comparison, but sorry, go on.
Maybe.
It's
Um,
bi-directional.
yeah, yeah, I guess. Whereas Tama's just the Tama gate or the gate in Tama.
Yeah,
Um,
Tama because it's the closest low-sec entry point to Caldari space. Rancer is Rancer because people need to run through that low-sec pipe in order to cut jumps between
Yeah, what is it? It's Rancer and Mirror Item or something like that. Are the two
Sure.
biggest ones in that type.
We'll go with that.
Um, yeah.
Somebody bring Isaac back on. We'll ask him. I don't know. Go on.
But as for what they should do, I would have no idea. I would want to see what they do because they do have something planned. So I'd want to see what that plan is before saying whether or not it would be good. Um, because it's definitely still, even in this day and age, we're still going to be feeling the effects of what happened for a long time. Because just simply because even their workaround is not going to be great. Um, and so the Yeah, it's just like it's a really tough question for me to answer.
You do bring up a really good point, though, with the whole like. I think that this is one of those details that has gotten kind of lost to time, but we had no idea the consequences. I mean, we didn't have instruction as to the actual consequences of our action, and I
yeah,
think that
we
the
knew.
prevalent assumption was that there'd be like some linking system, this bouillon that all of these systems would then link to, but not that they would actually be disconnected.
Yeah, like it was really. I was thrown through a loop when it happened. I'm like, okay. And then, like, of course, my one alliance mate who fought for the empires was like all angry at us. Look at what you guys did. Okay.
So, what have you been up to since chapter 3 then?
I've just been up to doing things like I was doing evictions tail end of last year, and did one really big eviction in Wormhole space. At least big for my group. Obviously, it wasn't like multiple trillion. It wasn't like we evicted Hard Knocks by ourselves. But it was we evicted a group that ended up like one of the big fights of the eviction. Took like 4 hours or something like that, or 2 hours, something like that, two to 4 hours, and the total bill was several hundred billion.
Are you the leader of your
Um,
group?
Yes, I am the CEO of Fleet and the executor of Sundari Triad. I have been since our inception, and not because I am a dictator, but because my position is actually an elected position and no one wants to vote me out, I guess.
I've heard a lot of dictators say that.
I
No,
actually constantly
but
make the joke, please vote me out.
that's not what a CSM representative normally says. But so
No.
that being said, so how big is your organization then? If you want to take that as indication of people who support you.
We are currently, I think we're going through a small rebuild because after the QI eviction, we had a lull in activity, and a chunk of us, well, another corp decided to, instead of trying to work towards getting it, like building it back up, they just wanted to disband. They wanted to disband their corp and leave. And so they left and took several of my actives with them. So then we ended up I ended up having to start rebuilding, and we're in the rebuilding process right now.
Right. So
But we also have a completely different culture now than what we did back then. So
right. So you have a small but effective team and running around wormhole space at the moment, preparing for your next thing. Is that pretty
yes,
accurate answer? Cool.
yeah.
Uh, we'll back up. So would you say that you're a wormhole candidate then?
I am both. I would say I am both a wormhole candidate and a new player candidate because specifically my corp is geared towards even like one of my members. She interviewed with us before she even made a character. She just found us on a related subreddit. Was really interested in trying Eve, but didn't know where, she didn't want to put herself at risk anywhere. So she ended up jumping in and asking if she could join when during the interview. it came out that she hadn't even made a character. And like we have been this entire time working on our own version of trying to make wormholes much more new player friendly. So she was one of the best, I don't want to say guinea pigs, but like testers to make sure we were able to be as new player friendly as possible. And we found where like what can be improved, what's the minimum we need. So for stuff like blop fleet, since we live in a C2 5 null, when we do blop fleets off our null, a character needs to be at least, I think, a week old to use the handout Asteros we have.
Right. Okay. So, but as a CSM person, you're hoping, I'm assuming, to take that kind of to the next level and help advocate for wormholes and, more importantly, making wormholes more accessible to players, newer player, or people that are trying to get into it. Would is that fair?
Yeah, that's basically
Okay.
summing up. But
So what does a
yeah.
newbie friendly wormhole look like? What does it look like to have newbie friendly wormholes?
To have newbie friendly wormholes, just relies on looking at the overall wormhole meta and seeing what can and can't be used in it. So anything that would affect the wormhole meta. So right now, some of the biggest things have been stuff like Ham Legions, Ham Lokis, Triglavian ships, and looking at what a new player can do that isn't just, oh, throw them in a Griffin and if they die, they die. Um, so things like one of my old doctrines that we used arbitrators um, for anti-Triglavian.
Right.
Because an arbitrator will take a long-range Lashak and shut it down to about 5 kilometers.
And the super useful value to this is that Triglavian ships, since they cycle, resetting their cycle can be very, very effective. So a small number of tracking disruptors can actually disrupt a large group of Triglavians if those pilots efficiently use their tracking disruption to cycle, shutting off guns
Yeah,
to
and
shut off high cycles.
that was the biggest thing we pushed through was basically you would one cycle shut down each trig ship and then just move to the next.
Right, exactly.
Um, yeah, it was and it's stuff like that, like finding you so we'd have to make sure that within a wormhole meta, you would want to make sure that there are viable ships to put newbies in that won't just be, oh yeah, you're gonna be in this one ship, you're gonna do basically nothing and die.
So I'm going to be kind of timely
Because
about this, though. So today, we got the patch, and it shows that we have an expert frigate, expert systems for expedition frigates for 4 days, letting everybody, including alphas, fly Tech 2 mining frigates for 4 days because of this weekend's, this event going on this week and into this weekend. Likewise, a few weeks ago during the Federation, not a few months ago during the Federation Grand Prix, we got interceptors given to everybody for 2 days that could be used by alphas no matter what. Is this an example of a good way to help new bros be able to access things?
I really don't like the expert systems for the most part, simply because they feel like uh, they're basically teasing. These are things you will eventually be able to do, but it's a way to milk extra money from the player. And it can target a especially with their one that does the Magic 14, a player might be pressured to pay for that until they train all of the Magic 14. Um,
Right.
and so, in my opinion, they tend to, while it can be useful for letting someone try it as intended, I feel it can be used with a more sinister tone to it,
I
uh, so to say.
I absolutely agree that that while CCP has so far not, in my opinion, stepped over the line with the expert systems for sale, it is nuclear radioactive, and they need to tread every decision that they make about that needs to be careful, because this is one of the ways that they are treading incredibly dangerously close to actually crossing a real line, and the whole slippery slope argument and all that sort of stuff. But like this could actually violate if executed incorrectly. That said, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that now for 2 different events, CCP has given an expert system away to everyone who logged in during that event to give everyone a temporary chance to access these advanced ships, in particular the advanced ships that are necessary to get the most out of that very event. What do you think about that use of expert systems?
Okay, so out of that use, it's not a bad thing. I must not have noticed when I got the expert systems myself. Um, then again, I next to never look at my login rewards
A
unless it's
lot of
SP.
experienced players haven't even noticed that we're getting these expert systems because you already have those skills. But yes, for the Grand Prix, everyone got to be an interceptor pilot for 4 days, even if you were an alpha. And right now, everyone gets to be an expedition frigate pilot, even if you're an alpha.
Okay. Yeah. No. Then that's actually a great way to do it, especially when they're doing events like this and events like the Grand Prix. That way, no one can feel left out. Like you don't deal with like fear of missing out. You don't feel left out. Your option to take the event is entirely your option. This use of it is actually very good.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And thank you for exploring that nuance with me. Um, so you said this is your 4th year running, right?
Correct.
Let's start from the beginning there. What made you want to run for the CSM?
For the most part, I really like. I mean, I wouldn't be playing this game solidly for the last 8 years if I hated this game. I really do like this game. I really want to protect it. I really want to uh, protect the areas of space and the areas of this game that really mean a lot to me. But the only way to really do that is to be on basically be on the CSM to try to have a moment, because we have seen points in time where a lone CSM member was like, "Hey, this is a really bad idea, and this is why," and CSP ended up backtracking on it. Um, so I want the ability to be able to potentially do my own to protect um, both the area of space I really love and protect the types of players I care about. Mostly, like I said, new players, and I have a soft spot for low sec, both faction war and not, and wormhole space.
Protect from CCP?
Protect from CCP's not thinking, because they have a history of wanting to do things and not thinking about unintended consequences.
That's fair. Um, and I suppose that there are a lot of people that see it in that way. So I don't even know if it's fair to even challenge you on that. That's a absolutely fair, valid way of looking at it. And I think that it is an important role for the CSM to provide, because I I have often said that EVE Online is a game that has succeeded in spite of CCP at sometimes, not because of him, but um, it is important for the CSM to be optimistic about CCP's capabilities of actually executing on things. It's important to, not ensure that our candidates are not cynical and that they believe that CCP is capable of it and they want to help CCP do the right thing rather than try to like stop the CCP from doing the wrong thing as their principal motivation. So which side of that would you say you are?
I would basically be on the whatever you would classify the making sure that if something has an unintended side effect, and especially the aerospace I know best, that they realize, oh, this is what would happen in these spaces, because a lot of their thoughts tend to at least seem to focus on nullsec only, so they don't really see how it can affect lowsec. They don't see how it'll affect wormhole space. And in fact, they've said multiple times that they often end up forgetting about wormhole space and they even never even intended people to live there.
Right. It's not even a matter of whether or not they forgot. It's that literally like it wasn't even part of the design space, and therefore, in some ways, everyone's still trying to figure out what that design space even is. And so, yes, very, very frequently, more than almost any other subsection of Eve, wormholers often have to be like, hey, that kind of ruins everything in this way that nobody even thought about ever, like outside of wormhole space. So they've had to have lots and lots of like last second specialty things put in to keep their play style, and therefore having good wormhole representation in CSM is really important. Which actually I will dig into this really quick. I'm as a wormhole candidate, there used to be the wormholers would pull together and have primaries, and then a few years ago there was like the grand betrayal, and it kind of has been like really hard to see the wormhole voting base as unified since then, and that has caused them to have difficulty seeking having representation. And some people have believed that has led to some of the problems that you see in wormhole space now. In particular, the very unpopular From Wormholes with Love. Before I continue, is there anything about that premise that you disagree with at all?
No, it's pretty spot on.
Okay, so knowing that, one of the things I've talked to all of the wormhole candidates about is how important it is to like rally the wormhole vote. Many of them have issues where a lot of their voters or their prospective voters will see them as the enemy, and will be concerned that they will use their position against them. So, given all of that, how do you plan to bring together the wormhole vote to make it so that you're not further fracturing things and causing just none of you to get elected?
Well, I personally, anytime it comes up in Praise Bob Discord, I've remarked that we all should we honestly our ballots should primarily be wormhole candidates, if not all wormhole candidates, if we have enough wormhole candidates, because we want at least one of us, because null will make sure that there's several null candidates on there.
Right.
Low, it's a coin flip whether or not low has a candidate to put on there. Whereas the rest of us, and whereas us in wormhole space, we need to band together to try to vote at kind of as a pseudo block, because you'll never be able to get someone from Hard Knocks to convince most of the wormhole space that you should vote for me. I am the good guy. Hard Knocks has a very storied and colorful history within wormhole space that I'm pretty sure most everyone here knows. And because of that, it does create a lot of animosity. It does create a lot of, like we saw with Loro. Loro didn't get the vote mostly because he was in Hard Knocks. And Izuki also equally didn't get the second set of votes because he was with he was with Wormhole with TD stuff like this. Stuff like that happens because they voted for one, did not vote for the other, and voted for null candidates. And because of that, it kind of fractured the vote. So
Right.
as long as us wormholers vote as a pseudo block and don't say, hey, here's what we should vote for, here's the definitive wormholer vote list,
Mm-hmm.
vote in this order. Instead of doing that, just be like, all right, these are all of our wormhole candidates. Vote as you want among them, but vote for them.
Right. So, okay, but you've ran for 4 years. So if I wanted to be super cynical, I could argue that if I was to be like pragmatically looking into my options as a wormhole voter tactically, I would say like I need to put my most viable candidate in the number one spot. My concern would be that like I guess why should you, I understand the coalition thing, but why should I put you as the number one spot and not someone else? Why are you the candidate now for wormholers and elsewheres? But like, not just why should we vote for wormhole candidates, but why should I put you above them?
Um, why should you put me? Why should a wormholer put me above other candidates? Because for the fact of I'm one of the few, if not, I think I might be the only one, running to help new players, and that will reinvigorate our space. Because our space is, while it's still active and it's still, you can still get fights in there, it is languishing, and it has been for a couple of years now. And it's languishing on. There are some new players, not some new groups coming in, but a lot of times there's like groups just end up dying out, um, and not return. And we're bleeding more than we're gaining. At least that's, I haven't looked at the hard data, which is usually what Exuki does, because he usually ends up finding ways to get the hard data, um, and be able to parse it properly. But for the most part, we've been languishing more players than we've been getting. And so with my hope is to, when I break the, because right now there is a view that wormhole space is hard. Wormhole space is the hardest space to live in. It's true to an extent because we have more punishments than most other spaces, such as when your structure gets blown up, that's it, your stuff's gone. Um, but I want more new players to come in. And actually, I was going to do a talk at Eve North this year, but Eve North got canceled about that.
Right. Awesome. So a little bit of an aside here, though. You are a wormholer that, through the Triglavian invasions and all that stuff, has been at least somewhat involved in the precursor crisis and this lore and all sorts of stuff like that. I personally believe that the puzzle box nature, the mystery, which is largely still unsolved within wormhole space, of what is going on with the sleepers and understanding the sites and unpacking that. Um, I feel like it could be a very good draw to cause people to cause newbies to want to dig deeper into wormhole space beyond just going in there to hack cans and all that stuff. Is, you know, did you engage at all with the story aspect beyond getting a body pillow of their leader or campaign leader? And have you do you see any potential in the sleeper mystery in the modern age when it comes to getting people into and engaged with and rewarded by wormhole space?
I would love to see a continuation because that's where Drifters even actually, like, we got the whole Drifter arc and it just kind of floundered. I would love to see it continued. They never finished it. At least I didn't. I don't see how they finished it. They just kind of, Drifter invasions happened, and then when they found out that like loot was not worth it, and they were one-shotting super shiny battleships, and just there was no efficient way to run them. People just gave up and didn't run them.
Yeah. Well, it's a
Um,
complicated story, but what I'm saying is that like the sleeper sites themselves, like have all kinds of like. There's an old post by CCP Dropbear where he says, it may not make sense at first, and every pen stroke within sleeper space is is part of the mystery. There's the Eric Jalan project where people, dug through all of the different stuff. There's secret pop-ups that can happen depending on how you're running these different sites. And while a lot of it was solved by Templar One, there piecing it all together is maybe interesting for a new player and cause them, you know, give them a reason to live in wormhole space to perform these, investigations. Um, but I feel like it's completely not really made aware of. So
I mean, I don't think it's really even made aware of really within wormhole space. Because yes, while there is like lore bits when you warp to each site, and there's a bunch of, like, you can find lore tidbits within the site, most people just ignore them.
interesting. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to. That's not a gotcha in any way. this is basically what I found with anybody I've talked to about this, and I was almost holding on to like if anybody took like their time, got interested in the lore, and then like when they went to wormhole space started pulling this stuff apart, it may have been you, but I think that that's just such a clear indication of how much untapped potential is still there. But I digress. Let me check the time. We still have a little bit. We definitely still have time. So, what has changed, or what have you done differently to make this campaign successful?
I've tried to make myself more visible we've built up more. We're not as insular as we were last year. We have more friend groups. I've really just started branching and getting my name out there more. Whether or not it's going to be enough, I don't know. Only time will tell with that. But I've just definitely been getting my name out there more than just like a few places.
Right. This year has definitely brought a lot of attention to things that have kind of been in the background. A lot of people that have been in the background, especially with things, with the Triglavian invasions and those people that were involved with that. What do you plan on? Are you planning on continuing to live in just wormholes and continue to be a wormholer? Do you have any interest as CCP continues to kind of like foundations right now? We're doing, there's the gate mining event, and there's going to be more Empire stuff and probably more advancement of the story. There's the EOM advancement. Was your time with invasions kind of a like a touch against the story? Now you're off to do the next thing, or are you interested in getting involved with the future plans for foundations and beyond in that sense?
I'm definitely interested in continuing to go on. Whether or not I don't think I'm gonna join in the current event for it because it's stuff like, it's mining and it's helping the empire. I don't have any love in my heart for any of the empires, but it's mining, and I find mining to be incredibly tediously boring activity. So I don't think I'll do that. But if they do make other more site or combat oriented ventures, I definitely would be more interested in trying, especially with Triglav. With the Triglav Conclave, I was really it scratched an itch I really wanted to have happen for a long time. I before Triglavians, I was a really big fan of the Sanja and the lore behind the incursions, and I just kind of wished that we could fight for the Sanja instead
Right.
of only fighting against. And now here it is, we have an NPC faction that I can fight for, and it's like, oh well, yeah, let's go do that.
Were you playing during the Sancha live event that led up to incursions?
I was not. That was
Okay.
shortly before my time.
Yeah. Well, what you said really made me think that you might have been, because I remember that like that was incredibly successful, but the biggest thing was is that people wanted to work for Sancha, and CCP even admitted at the beginning of it that they didn't expect that. They didn't expect anybody to really be working for Sancha, and how the lengths that they would go to try to advance Sancha's efforts throughout the course of that like story arc. And while they adjusted to that and on the fly pretty effectively, I do believe that discovery really informed pieces of what would eventually become like the design for incursions, sorry, invasions. So, learning these lessons are really, really important, and it's cool that you were one of those people that, at least around that time, were thinking that way, and that it was fulfilled in invasions, at least somewhat. Overall, are you happy with invasions? With how invasions turned
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with them. A lot of my fellow wormholers grumble, especially with the fact of, it did make our logistics a little harder. If you say you got a connection to a Mars base, we really want Jita. Well, now with the Nyarja cutoff, you have to deal with Amar. And add to that, but there are the Triglavian wormholes that would occasionally pop in to wormhole space. Originally were like the worst thing ever because of the Triglavians that would flood through. I personally found it was amusing, but I'm a rarity among that.
I don't know how. Anyway, so no, so okay, what is one? What like CSM sessions are done into like panels basically. Like they have sessions with specific CCP devs in order. So like, what is the one CSM session that like you don't even just want to be in it, but like you're upset if you can't at least be at the table because of what you could provide to that discussion. What is the one session that would be like the most like put out by not having Kay-Lynn Tsero at the table?
That the so that the discussion that I would bring uniquely to the discussion.
Right. Well, yeah. What is the one topic, or what would be the one category of a CSM summit that would be the most like that you not being at the table could lead to the wrong decisions being made, people not realizing what to do. You have to be there. You have to be there because you can give them the answer that other CSM candidates wouldn't be able to give. I know
Something like
that's a really tough one.
some, something like this is really tough, simply because I feel that like to definitively have an answer for this would, in my opinion, would be a step of arrogance, um, because that means that you feel you uniquely have more knowledge than anyone else about something. That being said, um, probably the one that would most likely would be anything concerning if they want to talk about alphas in wormhole space, um, because that is our part of our specialties. We do accept alphas. We do accept like literally day zero characters.
Right, and
Um,
quite frankly, not to answer your own question for you, because I did make it really hard. So it sounds like the new player experience would probably be the good answer for that, because a lot of the people, when they're talking about new player experience, they're going to think about things like the tutorial, the career agents, the missions, all that kind of stuff. And therefore, if you're not at the table, there might not be somebody that actually frames wormholes as a part of the new player experience.
yeah, that'd be probably a better way to phrase what I was kind of like trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, it was a hard question and it was very open ended. So I was like, here, make something up. So I'm glad that we are able to come to a good decision because it's helping. I wanted to ask it to be able to think about how to zero in you as a candidate. And so I do also just one more time, or to address this directly, like you've ran 4 years in a row, you've got your weeb fleet. There would be concerns that supporting you takes support away from somebody else. I just want you to speak directly to why you are a serious candidate to be the person that they vote for.
Just because, for one, the fact that I've been going 4 years in a row, while it hasn't been 4 years solidly as a wormhole candidate, because I have done low sec candidate, I have done faction warfare candidate, for 2 of those 4 years. So only last year and this year are wormhole candidate, um, and the entire time going on Newbro as well. Um, the the fact that I'm not dissuaded by not getting on, uh, speaks to my shows my determination. It shows that when I have my mind set to something, I will do it, and because of that, when I state I will do my best to protect multiple areas, like the multiple areas of space that are often underrepresented, and one of the most vulnerable sections are of players, that the electorate can be assured that I will do that because my track record shows how determined I am at when I put my mind to something, I will do it.
All right. Yeah. And again, that was another hard question. I really appreciate you tackling that. And I think that's a really good answer. I do have two questions that actually will undercut what I just asked. One is muffin or donut, and why?
I said this in the chat, but it's I personally prefer muffins because they are softer and they are most often not as sweet as donuts. I don't have a huge sweet tooth, although I do love blueberry and banana nut muffins. But they tend to be they tend to be less cake-like than donuts, and I prefer that.
Excellent. All right. And then finally, we do have a lot of people that feel both ways on this issue. So what is your stance on cat ears as a player customization option?
So if you actually open back up my CSM thread and scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see my stance on that.
Right. All right. I'll do that. But I wanted to give you an
Um,
opportunity to say it out loud
I
since they asked
stated
anyways.
that I am absolutely 100% for cat ears. I was with Yentan or Yentarn when he said that himself. Um, the So I actually said it right down there. Yep. I promise to maintain Yentarn's work at getting us cat ears in Eve.
I think
The
that
Galentes,
I think it took
the
us a little
Galente
while,
have
but we really
canonical,
sorry. Go on.
the Galente have canonical furries. Why can't they give us cat ears?
I think I finally. It took me a little while, but I think I really settled on your primary campaign issue. You certainly riled up. You got a lot of support from the audience from that. All right. Well, I have. This is now your 10-minute time. Is there anything that we haven't covered, or anything that you would like to double down on? Last pitch.
No, really just if you really care about basically if you really care about making sure new players have a new player candidate, if you care at all about wormholers having a wormhole candidate and possibly any potential things, meme topics such as getting the cat ears, um, or even certain things like trying to enable more support for trans people or whatever. I am the girl for the job, and so vote for me for that. Like mostly, I want to be mostly voted for the new player stuff and the wormhole stuff, but those other side things can be viable things to vote for me for. Other than that, not really.
Awesome. Well, if nothing else, I think that this really speaks to your continued belief. The CSM has had some ups and downs, and this last few years has been kind of rough for the CSM, in particular for wormholers. And so, the fact that you continue to stick with it, continue to fight for it, and as you said, never give up, I think is a testament to your character, and also a testament to your belief within the CSM and why it is important. Do you want to close off by any thoughts about why the CSM is important to you and why people should take it seriously and vote?
As I said earlier, the CSM, there have been instances documented that that one CSM member said, "Hey, this idea will seriously harm this section of space," such as with citadels. Originally, we were going in wormhole space, we were going to have asset safety,
That's true.
and it wasn't until one of the CSM members was like, "Hey, this is actually a dumb idea," that it actually happened, that we didn't get asset safety.
Correct. That is actually a really good example of what I was alluding to earlier, where wormholers having a different philosophy, and so being able to band together and help communicate to CCP what makes wormhole space special, because nobody else gets it. They have done it successfully in the past, but it has gone. There has been difficulty with that, and having a good CSM candidate or person on the CSM goes a long way for wormhole space. So especially if you live in wormhole space, interested in wormhole space, or think that wormhole space is something you might want to grow into later, focusing on wormhole space candidates might be very important to you. And in that sense, Kay-Lynn Tsero could be your representative of choice. I think that I'm very excited to see where you're going with this. I know that you're continued to be committed, so I look forward to see what you do as a CSM member or as a not CSM member. I think that you'd be very, I think that you would definitely bring value to the CSM. Again, helping people open the mind of what a new bro can be, especially in a world in which we have new bros with doing 24-hour streams and new bros doing, yeets within their first play session and all these other crazy things. I think that once we give people the tools to learn this game, we're going to need to accept that new bros can get really deep into things that we would think as being really advanced very quickly, just because the game is now learnable. And you're one of those people that can really help them see that and build a new player experience that can anticipate that. So on that note, So on that note, I wish you the best of luck, and thanks for dropping by.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Have a wonderful day.